Stop the world, I want to get off. Anybody ever remember that bumper sticker? Crazy thing is, there was a time that it made a different sense than it does today. Is that, we were looking around for the pre-tribulation rapture, and the world was going to stop, and we were going to go somewhere else and leave everybody else behind. And now theology has changed a little bit to where, stop the world, get them off. All right, I don't want to be left behind onto something that is righteous. Okay. We enter into the month of Elul before I get to the Torah portion this week. And Elul is a fascinating time as we look toward the fall festivals of Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. Hope you've made your plans. Hope you've gone online, or at least pretty soon, go online and get your lulav, your esrog. You can order those from Israel. If you don't have a website, just do a little search there. But if you can't find a website, please just send me an email. I'll be glad to send you the website that I use. And this is, in this day, connecting with the land. Wow. It's hard. It's difficult in this day to not be able to get on a plane. And with all that's going on in Israel, and it doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon. And so we get, Kathy and I received the Lev HaOlam box from Israel. I'll be glad to send you that email. You never know what's going to be in that box. And that's the wonderful thing about it, is it's a connection with the land. It's something that was in the land just a few days earlier, and now it's in your hand. And it's skin cream, or this month is shampoo, and all kinds of different things that are in there. Spices, a beautiful recipe book that has kanafi, and I'm going to try my first hand at kanafi very, very soon. So all of these things that are in that box, and it's not just that we're supporting Israel, but it's my connection right now to the land. These are all things that we can do. Elul is leading up to the fall festivals. The scripture tells us to bring the four species before Him. Well, I know that that we're in exile, but we live in a day that I can go online, and for not that much money, I can order my lulav, my etrog, and I can have it shipped so that at my Sukkot, wherever I am, and I'm going to be all over again this year, but wherever I am at Sukkot, I can wave that, and it's something that is my connection to the land. Elul is a time of kind of a longing, okay? The word Elul, and I know that the Hebrew, the calendar did not have names of months prior to Babylon. I'm not one that goes to everything is pagan. There's paganism under every rock. There's paganism under a lot of rocks, okay? But not under every rock. And the word Elul actually comes from an Aramaic word which means to search, which gives us a hint of what the month Elul actually is about. Now, considering that they were in Babylon, this is an Aramaic word. So if someone wants to say that the whole thing's pagan, well, I guess that the book of Daniel is pagan. So might want to take that one out of Scripture. Maybe not, or at least not my Scripture. You're not going to take it out of yours, but not mine. Okay. So the word Elul is it's Aleph Lamed Vav Lamed. Fascinating word in that these are the first letters of the words of Song of Psalms, chapter 6, verse 3, I believe it is. I am my beloved is mine. I won't butcher the Hebrew on that one, but it is, and it's not the I am my beloved. It's more of I am toward my beloved. My beloved is toward me, and it is this idea of panim la panim, or face to face, or being to being. That's the concept that is in Elul. And we know that many of us know the tradition that the king is in the field. He comes out of his palace. He comes into the field during the time of Elul to work with us. So expect supernatural divine intervention, an opportunity in your life right now. Maybe you're struggling. Maybe you're in that field and you're struggling with some things. Expect that there's going to be a new level of intervention in your life, of opportunities in your life. Maybe some things that you're like, I didn't see that coming, or I just don't really feel prepared. Well, he is prepared, because if he gives you an opportunity, then he does not give you an opportunity to frustrate you, but to grow you, to bring you into something. So if you're praying for opportunities, then be open for them, but be open for that may be stretching you in some ways that you're very uncomfortable with, which is kind of one of his hobbies, right? Of stretching us into things that we're not comfortable with. This word Elul, though, it's this month, it's about him coming into the field, and at the end, he's going to return. The shofar is going to sound on Yom Teruah. He's going to return unto the palace. There's a day coming in which, when he returns into the palace, we're going with him. Okay, that's that caught up into the kingdom. To me, we're going to be going back into the palace with him. So this should be a day of longing. I think it's a day that we should be longing for, and a day that he is longing for. All right. With that, let's go to Shoftim, or Judges. We're going to be in Devarim, chapter 16, verse 18. And these verses, first of all, start out and said, "You are to appoint judges and officers for all your cities, and they are to judge without favoritism. They're not to take a bribe. They're to not turn a deaf ear, an unseeing eye to things that are unrighteous." I mean, read those words slowly to yourself and ask yourself the question, do I want to live there? I mean, I read these words this morning. It's like, I'm all over that place. Give me a place to live that doesn't have politicians, that doesn't have CDC, that doesn't have all of these three-letter agencies in there. And let me segue just something right here. We live in a day that we better be wise. We better walk in more wisdom than most people are walking in today. Just as a side note here, I want you to ask yourself, when you post something on social media, would you want anybody and everybody to see that post? Think through it before you hit the post button. Before you hit that return button on your computer, when you send something out, ask yourself that question. Okay, back to this. Living in a place that there is righteous judgment, that there's no political favors, there's no two-party, three-party, 120-party system, like there is in Israel or something like that, the Knesset. But there is a system of one rule, of justice, of righteousness. It is without favoritism. There is, there's no, well, if you're of this social status, you can go to this party and, you're going to be considered sophisticated. But, if you go somewhere on a motorcycle, you're the peons and should be living by some different rules. The kingdom is going to be one set of rules, and it's going to be the rule of the Torah. That is it. Now, here's another question regarding this. When we say, would we want to live in a society that is according to this? And of course, the first reaction I would imagine would be, well, of course, yes, I'm all over it. Sign me up, move me there, you know. But what if you're not the judge? What if you're not one of the officials? But you're one of the people that's living there and being told how to live. Okay, this is like living in a homeowners association, which I've never lived in one because most of the time the person that is voted in as president of that has, well, let me just, they're kind of like Barney Fife. Okay, I'll tone that one down from where I was going to go. There can be some nice people, but you know how Barney was. Once he had the gun and the bullet, he became a totally different person. And that's normally who somebody puts in there. And that power goes to their head. And they run around and tell you what tree you can plant, and you know what the height of your lawnmower has to be, and all those crazy things. But you have to submit to that. Well, consider that the judges are going to have a rule which is called the Torah. But there may be some things in the Torah that you're still kind of learning about and are kind of, you know, would be going kind of against your old nature. Will you be able to submit to that kind of righteous rule then? Possibly you could look at we could look at our lives. Okay, I'll put all of us in here, not pointing a finger at you. But we could look at all of our lives today and consider this. When someone is walking in righteous judgment, how quick are we today to accept that judgment? Or does this thing kind of rise up inside of us, but of, well, you know, you shouldn't tell me what to do? There's going to be some things about the kingdom that, you know, maybe at first, you know, maybe we're not just going to be zapped into total perfection, but we're going to have to walk some things toward there, dealing with issues. I don't know. But ask yourself this question. Is my attitude today regarding those that the Father places in authority over our lives, and He does, would my attitude today, would it transpose into the kingdom well, or will there have to be some adjustments? Okay, I'll leave that one right there. Chapter 17, verse 1. You're not to sacrifice to Yahweh your Elohim a cow or a sheep that has a defect or anything wrong with it. That would be an abomination to Yahweh your Elohim. Offering things that have a defect. This is the story I'm told. I won't go into it in depth, but my grandmother over this shoulder here, she always went to the bank, and the offering that she put, this is in the day of cash, you know, with an offering plate passing in a Southern Baptist church. But Granny would never put a bill in the plate that had been used. Some would call that legalistic, I'm sure, but I today call it an example of this verse for a woman who ate pork probably at every single meal. You know, the dessert that she made had you know, some kind of lard or something in it, but she was living according to a Torah that had been revealed to her in that day. And I think that her attitude toward that goes back to this verse. So it's about, you know, our offering should be with everything that we have. You know, we should not be, it's kind of like when someone would call me when I was pastoring a congregation, they'd call me and say, Pastor, I've got some things that I'd like to donate to the church. Let me tell you what that means. I've got some things in my house that I can no longer use. They're unusable to me. They have no value at all to me. I had a garage sale for the last 3 weekends, and there was some things left over from the garage sale. So I went down to the local thrift store, and they said that they wouldn't take these items, and so I'd like to pawn them off on you. That's what that really meant, okay? So what is that? That is giving unto him, something with a defect. Let's give him our best. Let's give him what he deserves, which is the best that we possibly have to offer. David said in buying the area which is now the Harabite, the Temple Mount, I will offer unto him nothing that doesn't cost me something. That goes totally against a lot of Christian thinking today, but I think that the scripture goes against a lot of Christian thinking. That's not being judgmental. It's just kind of the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. Let's look at what we're offering, how we're offering it. Are we coming to, trying to find the minimums that we can possibly give? And I'm not just talking about financially here, but with our life itself, all right? Now, it goes on and talks about, in chapter 17, down in verse 14, when you've entered the land and that I'm giving you, and you've taken possession of it, and you say, we want a king over us. They were told that they weren't supposed to do that, all right? So when he tells you that you're not supposed to do something, but you decide, I think I'm going to go ahead and do this anyway, and the outcome of it is not real good, don't go back and blame him for your decisions. And this is what happened with the Hebrews. This is what happened with Israel, is they were told not to ask for a king because you're not to be like all other nations. The nations wanted a king, as Pharaoh had been, but Israel was to live as Yah himself was their king. That he was to be the unseen king in their presence, which had given them his word, the constitution, if you would, the constitution of the kingdom. It was called the Torah, and they were to live according to that, even though there wasn't a physical presence of the king in their midst. This would have been an act of faith that would have been shown to the other nations. But yet they looked at other nations and said, we want to be like them, which is a problem in the first place. When we want to be like other nations, we're to be a peculiar, unique treasure, right? As we talked about in last week's Torah portion. So they asked for a king. What do they get? They get Saul. That didn't go real well. And then they get David. King David, his heart, his inner man was toward the Almighty. He made some pretty bad mistakes. And then you go over to Solomon, to Shlomo, and he built the temple, and I'm reading right now in Kings where he dedicated it as a beautiful event, but it was on the backs of, he put his own people into slavery. So you want a king. There may be some good things that come of that, but there may be some bad things that come of that. And a king was not to, it's very simple, it says, a king was not to acquire many horses for himself. Well, read what Solomon did. It was not to acquire numerous wives for himself. Well, one of Solomon's wives was the daughter of the Pharaoh of Egypt. I know that in that day, you took a wife from a different kingdom so as to make a covenant so they would not fight with you, but that's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be making covenants with other peoples. So this is where you want a king? All right, and this is what's going to happen. They're going to go against the Torah, which is going to make you go against the Torah. We could never do that today. We don't look for a king. We're not asking for a king to rule over us. Not in our day, of course not. Really? Is that true? All right. How many people that are, and this is just one of those questions that I'm just going to throw out there, how many people are more interested and are fighting harder for their party to be in power than praying for his kingdom to be in power? Do you, go check their posts, and every post is about, this party and that party, and, this thing that we're doing, and, you know where I'm going with that. But you never see a post about the land or about the coming kingdom, or that we should be longing for that kingdom to come and praying for that kingdom to come and working toward that kingdom to come. Why? Because they want a king. They want one that they can see, one that's according to their own agenda, their own political bend, one that will sit in maybe a White House or a House of Congress or something, a House of Commons, a Knesset, something that they can see, someone they can send an email to, someone they can take out their frustrations on, face to face. We should be a people who desire one king, and only one king, to rule and reign over all the earth, starting with our house. Yeah. Okay. Now that king was to write a copy of the Torah in their own handwriting. I'm going to dare say that Solomon may not have ever gotten around to that. I don't know. But the king was to write a copy of the Torah, not just in their hearing. I started this a number of years ago. I never have finished. I got about halfway through. There's something about writing it. I know numerous people that have taken that on as an assignment, and they've written a copy of the Torah in their own handwriting. It's a wonderful thing to do. And I encourage you, if you'd like to do that, go out and get some notebooks and start writing it. I know one person that taught themselves Hebrew by writing the Torah. They didn't think about that you could have done it in English, so they wrote it in Hebrew. By the time they got to the end, they're pretty good at Hebrew because they looked at the words and what they meant. The king was to write a copy of the Torah in their own handwriting, so that he would not turn aside either to the right or the left from the mitzvot. In this way, he would prolong his own reign and that of his children of Israel. There's a personal aspect of this. Let's go not just to the writing of the Torah, but to the study of the Torah. And when I say study of Torah, I'm not talking about just an intellectual exercise. Okay, when we talk about study, the word study kind of takes people back to their school days, or if you went to college, which I didn't do that, but whatever you did as far as education, and it was like the books, and you were studying them basically for one reason, okay, and that was to pass a test at the end. When I went into air traffic control, we had a map of the sectors that we would be controlling. I was actually at Oklahoma City for a while, and we had a Oklahoma sector and a Tulsa sector. And so we had this map, and you literally, in order to get through this 4-month course, that map had to be something that you didn't have to look at. It was in your head. That was the only way you were going to be able to pass that, is for it to be transformed from the piece of paper into your head to where you never had to think about anything that was on the map. It was just their muscle memory. And so we actually we took yarn on our wall in this trailer we had rented, and we put it on the wall, and we'd sit there looking at that. and we would ask each other questions. Where is this? What's the altitudes? What's minimum altitude? What's the distance between here and here? All of these different things, and that was our study. But what was it? What was it for? Well, it wasn't for real life, because I wasn't going to be working Oklahoma Center. I wasn't going to be working Tulsa sector. I was going to be in Anchorage. And so that map was, when I graduated, when I passed the air traffic control school, that map was totally irrelevant to me. Even though I can still kind of see some of it in my mind, it was totally irrelevant to my life. It was something I studied only for the moment to pass a test and then move on. Is that how we treat the Torah? That it's about passing a test? Or is this about a lifestyle? Is this about the transformation of our life? That's what the Torah should be about. The total transformation. And it says that it will, in this writing of the Torah, it says he will not think he is better than his kinsman. So even for the king, the study, the writing of the Torah is to bring him to a place of humility. Question here in the midst of this. Is our study of the Torah, is it producing an attitude of arrogance, of pride, or is it producing an attitude of humility? I mean, think about your relatives. Think about the people you come in contact with, and I know something you don't know. You can impress them that you know what the word Elul means, and let's turn over to Song of Solomon. Did you know that that's the Hebrew word, and the acronym and stuff? And you're like, yeah, I got another one on them. Or is it producing a humility that I've been shown something that in the scheme of eternity, the Father honored us to be given words of wisdom that has not been revealed to others. Maybe so that with the right attitude, that they would long to have some of those revelations of their own. I would say that if we look at if the Torah humbles us, we will come out as a greater witness of the Torah and the Messiah that the Torah reveals than if we come out on the other side with an arrogant attitude. All right, I got to go to, let's go all the way over to chapter 18 and verse 13. You are to be wholehearted with Yud-Heh Vav-Heh Yireh Elohim. Wholehearted. The word in King James is, I think it's probably tripped up more people. It says you're to be perfect. You're to be perfect, for I am perfect. And this is a word that goes over into the renewed covenant also of the words of Yeshua, that perfection, you're to be perfect. Now, how many of you have tried to be perfect in anything in life? Right? Anything. Tying your shoes. Have you tried to be perfect at that? And then, you walk down the street and find out that one of them came untied because, why? You didn't tie it tight enough, okay? Because you weren't perfect at tying shoes. I have this terrible habit sometimes of playing golf. Anyone that wants to be perfect, don't ever play golf. It's not, or shooting baskets or something. I've got a friend of mine that's been playing golf for 65 years, and he's like, I can't believe I just hit that ball like that. After 65 years, it seems like you would kind of master something, okay? Life is not about perfection. This is a great lesson here. Life is not about perfection. Because perfection, as a friend of mine said the other day, perfection will frustrate you. Because we cannot be perfect. But we can be, and I like David Stern's translation here, we can be wholehearted. Okay, let's give it a different connotation here. We can be of one mind. All right, let's go over to the book of Yaakov or James and look at a couple of verses regarding this. In the book of Yaakov, starting in, let's go up to verse 5. And I think that, if there's a verse for us today, get this one. Now, if any of you lacks wisdom, show of hands. Anybody need a little wisdom in our day? How about a lot? How about truckloads of wisdom in our day? The one thing that Solomon asked when he was asked, you can have anything you want. I'll give you anything you want. Name it. What did he ask for? Wisdom. Because wisdom will open a door to everything else. But every door will stay shut until we have wisdom. Every door of something that's worth having needs wisdom. Wisdom's the key to open that door. So if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of Elohim, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. All right? He's not up there like, I'm going to just withhold this one from him. He's not there to frustrate us, okay? But a person that goes to him with a single mind, and this is the key. Let's read on. But let him ask in trust, nothing doubting, for the doubter is like a wave in the sea, being tossed and driven by the wind. Indeed, the person should not think that he will receive anything from Adonai, because he is double-minded, unstable in all of his ways. It likens it to a wave. I've spent some time out specifically in the Gulf of Mexico, on smaller type boats, fishing boats, and the Gulf of Mexico is an interesting place to be in a storm when the winds come up. Very similar to, on a smaller scale, the Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee, in that the Gulf of Mexico is like a bowl, and you can have winds that come from a number of different places. The Kinneret's like that, and the waves are like coming at you from all directions, and it's very difficult in that type of an environment to keep the boat going in the proper direction. Because if you're just watching the winds, you're going to be driven all over the place. You have to set a course for where you're going and then commit to that course no matter what. This would be true in the Kinneret, and this is why the Talmudim, the disciples, they thought they were on the edge of death, because the winds are coming at them from every direction. The waves are coming at them from every direction. They don't have a motor in that day, so they're literally being tossed all over the place, which is very similar to, I think, today with the news, the non-news, the kind of true news, the fake news, this talk show, that talk show, podcasts and posts and social media and unsocial media and all that kind of stuff. It's just these waves are coming at you. The winds are coming from every single direction. And if you don't have a course, if you don't have a direction set in your mind, if you're not committed to something, you're going to be tossed all over the place. Why? Because the word says you're double-minded. You're unstable. You're not tamid. Tamid is about a singleness of focus. The word, let's go over to Yaakov, a couple pages over. Just turn a page here in Yaakov chapter 4, verse 8. It says, therefore submit to Elohim. Moreover, take a stand. Okay, what is that? Take a stand. It's commit against the adversary, and he will flee from you. That's a promise. When you commit to the destination, when you commit to where you're going, the flee. This is kind of my mental picture of this. Is that when we commit to where we're going, and he comes at us and batters us from this side and that side and sends a post of this and a news report of that, but we never take our eyes off the destination. He gets tired of messing with us and goes and finds somebody else. Yeah, that's a good day. Come close to Elohim. He will come close to you. Hey, who's here? Come close to him and he'll come close to you. This is the message of the prodigal son. Who made the first step? Now, the father of the prodigal son was standing on the porch daily, looking down the road. But he knew that he could not step off that porch and go find his son, because his son was not in the place to come back home with a single-mindedness. But when the prodigal son started thinking, came to his own senses, and he made that step, that began that journey toward home, go back and read the account that the father is standing there. No one had to go in the house and say, hey, your son's out there. No, he had been standing there every single day in this parable. And so when he's looking, he sees him in the field. Going back to Elul. He sees him in the distance in the field, and he runs off the porch to go get him. What a great message for us. Moving on. It says, clean your hands, sinners. Purify your inward man, you double-minded people. You cannot walk in a manner that is tamim, wholeheartedly, if we're double-minded. Catch yourself. Make this I'll give you some homework here. In your vocabulary, in the decisions that you're making, in the news reports that you watch. And I'm not one that says we should turn everything off. Our mascot should not be the ostrich. Sticking your head in the sand, which ostriches actually don't do. That's out of some kind of comedy thing somewhere. Probably began with a cartoon, and some people took it as truth. But for the best of my research, and I haven't done a lot of research on this, but what I did do one time, I found out they don't actually do this. Maybe somebody saw one do it one time. I don't know. Let's have let's make a split into two different congregations, the ostrich and the sand people and okay, whatever. So let's don't have that type of an attitude toward what is going on. But at the same time, when you hear something, when you see something, when you bring up your Facebook posts, or you're listening to something on a podcast or whatever, slow yourself down. Don't make immediate decisions based upon something, because you might find out that that is not true. And you may commit to something that you shouldn't have committed to, because you didn't follow the scripture, which is this over in chapter 19, verse 15. One witness alone will not be sufficient to convict a person of offense or sin or any kind. The matter will be established only if there are 2 or 3 witnesses testifying against it. Okay, that's not just in a court system. This is a good principle for life also, that we look for more than one witness in order to establish truth. Simply put, someone posts something on Facebook about whatever. I should not react to it. I should not give an instant reaction to that which is posted. I should look for confirmation of whether this is true or not, and then have the right resources to confirm the truth, the validity or the falsehood of what is being portrayed. Now, let's have fun. Let's have a little fun. In chapter 19, all right, we got all kinds of things happening in the world today. Chapter 19, when Yudhe-Vavhe Elohim cuts off the nations whose land Yudhe-Vavhe Elohim is giving you. A little, my page was folded right there. Couldn't tell if it was hand or and or land. When he gives you the land Yudhe-Vavhe is giving you, and you take their places and settle in their cities and houses. I love this. I love this verse. This is repeated a couple of times in Devarim, actually, of you're going to be going into a land that's going to have houses and vineyards and farmlands, and the garden's going to be planted, and the furniture, the walls of the house are already going to be painted. Kathy and I have moved into so many houses that we had to remodel, rip things out, refinish basements, paint walls. I tell you, I don't care to do it again. I'm just at that place in life that I would just as soon, if I ever have to move from the place that we're in, just have the right paint on the walls, have everything. In fact, you can go out and, I'll tell you what kind of furniture to buy. I just like to be able to walk in the door. The thing on the side of a U-Haul trailer, moving made easy or something. That's a lie. Easy and moving should never be on the same side of a truck, or even on the same truck for that matter. So you're going to be, this is about dreaming here. Let's spend a moment. Think about, even for those of you that have not been in the land of Israel. Imagine when you read the Torah, when you read the Gospels, when you read through Scripture and you start to see these words of places that you start to kind of envision them in your mind. Or if you've been blessed to have been there, like being on Elul Moreh and looking out over Shechem and seeing the Mount of Blessing, the Mount of Curses, Mount Gerizim, Mount Ebal, being up on the Golan Heights and looking out at Gamla, the beauty of of Tel Dan, various places in Israel. I've driven around there so many times. The houses. I mean, these poor Palestinians that are living in this squalor, in mansions, literally mansions in Israel. There's one on the side of Mount Gerizim. I mean, this will rival anything in Hollywood. All right. Yeah, I believe that there's probably going to be a lot of things destroyed in the world, in Israel, but there's going to be a lot of things that weren't. Could some of those houses Some of those houses that are there in the land now, planted gardens, vineyards, fig trees. I mean, just to have a mature fig tree. I've tried to grow figs now for, I can't remember how many years. I can't remember how many years. I love fresh figs off of a fig tree. It's part of my memories of a child of going to a neighbor and Granny, we would be out there and I'd be climbing up in this fig tree and getting them and make myself sick, and then Granny'd make fig preserves. There's something about a fig tree that I just love. And I tried to grow them in Oklahoma. Freeze would come. I almost had one bearing this year, and I'm meticulous with this thing of in the winter I put some wire around, I fill it with leaves. It's just still small, fill it with leaves. And this year I'd taken it off. We got this hard freeze. Everything died, and I'm back to square one. It's like I can't get a fig to grow. There's a fig tree in Israel. There's a fig tree in Israel that's mine. And it's growing next to a house. I went there. This was the first time I worked with Hayavel, and we went to a winery. It wasn't Torah, Tanya winery outside of Shiloh. And this guy had a fig tree, and I'm looking at these figs. He says, "You want some figs?" I said, "Yeah." It was a great guy. We got there. He fixed lunch for us because we were doing the vineyard that day. And we got there. He's playing American Pie on the radio. He had some 70s and 80s stuff on the radio. It was weird. But he was a little strange too. So he climbs up on the roof and starts throwing figs at us. And it's like, this is it for me. I mean, this is where I'm at. So allow yourself in these days of all the craziness, all the stuff, allow yourself the ability to dream. To just dream of where are you going to be in the kingdom? Where would you like to, forget what I've had there. Where would you like to be? Would you rather, are you more of a city dweller? You're thinking, okay, I'm going to be in Jerusalem right next to the Temple Mount and maybe the doorkeeper, in the house of Elohim. I'd be happy to sweep the floors of the temple or whatever needs to be done. Do you like deserts? You'd rather be down in the Arava, in the Negev? What about the Golan? What about a house, a lake house on the Galilee? Being up in Tel Dan, having a stream, a river flowing in your front yard, an ocean property, right? Being over in Netanya, in Herzliya, up in Haifa on the coast with the harbors, and the other nations are bringing their wares and things are going forth from Israel, and there's barter commerce that's happening there. What is your desire? There's something, your desire is a seed that's been planted in you of something that will be in the kingdom. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not sure. But I just know this: He does not place desires in us to frustrate us. He puts desires inside of us because it's something about our future. The tradition is He's in the field now. Yes, we have desires for what is going to be, but maybe there's some desires that are for now that He wants to help you in achieving on this side of the kingdom in preparation for the other side. Something to think about, something to dream about on this Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov, and have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem, God willing, see you again next week. And you know how I end everything. Be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha Shalom.